New month, new haircut, and a new set of plugins. Hey, this is Daniel from WP 103, and today we're going to check out the first 8 featured plugins of May 2026. Let's go! And we're going to start with FlowForms. This is a Typeform-style forms for WordPress. A lot of forms here. And this allows you to create beautiful forms for WordPress. After installing the plugin, you get a new menu item here called FlowForms. And I created 2 forms here already. Let's create another one, because you can either just start from a blank form or you can choose one of these templates. So let's use this testimonial. It opens then a new editor that allows you in the Builder tab to add pages and questions. In the settings tab you have different settings about email notifications and if progress bar should show, etc. And in the share tab you can get information about the shortcode, and you also get a link that directly goes to this form. So let's go back to the builder. On the right hand side we can change the text. So you cannot freely move them around. You can just say where they should land. So you can say, okay, I would like to have it on the left or right. And you can say it's either a wallpaper style or a split style. The individual pages are called blocks, and here you can then add more questions. If we add one, we can see we have short text, long text, multiple choice, checkboxes, star rating, etc., etc. Set a number field. In order to change this text here, you have to use the settings field on the right hand side. You cannot just click in here and change the text. That's a little bit unintuitive, but otherwise. So let's have a look at the form. Go to share. We open the link here, and here we have the full screen version basically of the form itself. Start. Daniel. You can either click OK or press enter. It works very well with the keyboard. After adding the entry, you can find it then under, well, entries. And we can see we have one unread. That's the one I just added. It was from the testimonial test form. And in theory, you could also filter that by form, but somehow that doesn't work here. You can star them. This works. You can filter them by start or not start. So let's check out the one we just added here. And we have all the data now in here. Very nice. We can just jump to the next entry and see what's that about. Also, what I noticed, if you click on view, also nothing happens. The settings menu allows you to change all the button, the labels and hint texts to whatever language you want, or you can just change them to a different phrasing. Another way to add your form to your WordPress site is by just adding it as a block. There is a new block called FlowForms. You add it, then you select whichever form you want to use. You can change the dimensions and you can use any CSS value, and this looks then like that. That's pretty cool, so you can integrate it really easily into your existing website. The plugin is free, but there will be a pro version later on. In its current state, the free version is very usable. It has a lot of features and it works great out of the box. The code quality is very good, and you have a lot of filters and action hooks for developers. What I like about the plugin is you can change all the messages and button labels and everything in the settings menu. That's pretty cool. The entries can be organized and starred. It has quite nice starter templates. Could be a few more, but still there are a few good options. You have many options to style the page. It creates its own site for the forms, which is a full screen site, so you don't have menus and stuff if you want to use it as a unbranded form. So that's pretty cool, and it has quite nice animations. What I didn't like about the plugin was that these view buttons and sort by form buttons in the entries menu didn't work. And also the design colors you can only define in the design tab here, and this is then for all the blocks or all the pages basically. So as you can see here, this works very well. We have a black background, and then the next one has also a black background. That works very well, but because the design has a white background, I would maybe have the next block, I would like to have white or like a brighter color. That doesn't work anymore, so that's a little bit a shame that you cannot change the design per block. It's just for all the blocks. All in all, I give this plugin a rating of 4.6. Next up is Microsoft TeamVault. I see what you're doing there with the name, and I'm not sure if I like it or not. Anyhow, it's a plugin that creates a private document workspace inside of WordPress that you can then use to share files with. Let's have a look. After installation, you get a new menu item called TeamVault, and the first item here is the file manager. You can see I added a few files already, and it just works as you expect it. You can drag and drop files in here and they get uploaded, and then you can view them, you can download them, you can move them to another folder by just drag and drop it. You can rename it and you can delete it. Also, it has a PDF viewer. To organize your files, you can put them in folders. I created here a new test folder. You can just create another like web or whatever, and then you have another folder to organize your files with. Here you see the total storage used. The export button allows you to export either all the files that are in there or just a specific folder. There are a few sorting and display options. We have a list view, we have a grid view, and how many items per page. The setting menu gives us interface language. We can choose between English and Italian. You can change the user access so that it is limited to specific users only. Per default, editors and admins have access to all the files in the vault. You can define which files are allowed to be uploaded and also how big the files can be. As you can see, there are two limits now. We have 50 megabytes set by the plugin, but the server limit is 8 megabytes, so you cannot upload anything more than 8 megabytes. We can enable or disable the PDF viewer. We can lock the activity. We're gonna check that out later. And also, I really like that you have a option to delete all the data on uninstall, so you can have a clean uninstall of the plugin. That's really nice. In the activity log, we can then see what happened. We can see like this user downloaded the file, it uploaded, moved, and deleted the file. And that's pretty much it about this plugin. It is a free plugin and is available in English and Italian. I think it's quite useful to upload and share private documents, and they also don't appear in the media library. So every user that doesn't have access just simply doesn't see it. Also, it is secured on the server side. Even if you know the file name, which is hashed or like encrypted, it doesn't have the original file name. You cannot simply download the file. That doesn't work if your server is configured the right way. What I liked about the plugin is it is well secured, as I said before. You can restrict the files by size and type, and you can restrict the users by capability or user itself. What I didn't like about the plugin was it was very confusing error message when you upload a file that is too large. It just says something very generic and you cannot really tell where the problem is. There is no separate rights per folder, so each folder is accessible for everybody who has access to the system. I think that would be a very nice feature if you can then have multiple user groups or whatever to restrict certain folders to certain users. Also, there is no separation between read and write access. Everybody who can read the files can also write them, so therefore can delete them. But the plugin is very developer friendly. There are a few hooks and filters available. All in all, that's a 4.3 on my side. Let's go to the next. Number 3 is Forma Favicon. That's a plugin that allows you to, well, set a favicon. This plugin adds a new menu item under Appearance, Favicon, and here you can then select a file. It could be a PNG or an SVG that you want to set as your favicon. So I selected that already. We can have the theme color and background color for the manifest, for the PWA, so the progressive web apps. We can do some icon styling. We can change the padding, for example. We can increase or decrease the border radius. Let's just leave it like that. Generate and apply. And this will set all these sizes and also the manifest, browser configuration, XML, and the favicon icon itself. Checking it out in the front end, we can see that the identity is set here, and also like the presentation, we have the theme color that we defined and the background color. And you cannot see that right now, but in the tab window I have the little icon. And if you install this page as an app, we can see that we have our icon here and also the name of the WordPress site itself. And that's basically it with that plugin. What I like about it is it is easy to use, it adds all the relevant icons, and also it adds the manifest for the PWA. But it's not really useful. I mean, you can just go to the settings general and define your site icon there, and then you basically get the exact same. Well, you cannot add the padding and the background color in the manifest and stuff like that, but if you're at that point where you need to modify that, you probably have a custom theme already, and then you can just do it there. So it's not really useful. It's well written and it works, yeah, but yeah, other than that, I would just use the site icon. Therefore, I give it a rating of 3.7. Keep in mind, this is already the 4th plugin we're checking out now. Okay, that was a bad pun, but the plugin is called KeepInMind Dashboard Notes, and it adds notes to your dashboard. After we install it, we get this admin notice here that you can now start using it. Okay, let's discard that. And we find 2 new buttons on the bottom right here. We have a hide button that hides all the notes and a plus note to add a new note. So let's put a sticky note. And here we have different options. We can write a note. Then we can define the color and type. Let's say that's an important. You can have it private, so it's only visible to you, or if it's not private, then it's visible to all the people that use the dashboard. We can post this note, and now it's just here. And after reload, it's still there. And yeah, that's pretty fun. Really nice animated post-its. I think it's really fun. So you can put in these post-its everywhere for things you need to remember. Another type is the pinned note and the open note. The difference is the pinned note just goes somewhere like to a specific item, and then say info, whatever. We cannot define a type here. It's just like a pinned note, and it shows this little icon here. See, there's another one, and it just opens when you click on. The other type then is open note, which is like here. Here you can also define the color or like the type again, and it will always stick in that element. And with the hide button, we can hide all the items except for these error ones. The error ones, they always stay, but only if it's a pinned one. Also, you can move these buttons around here with this little 3-dot icon. So if you need to see something in the down right corner, then you can do that. You can put these post-its and notes everywhere in the backend except for the block editor. I couldn't figure out how it works in the block editor, but in the block editor itself, you can add a note here, and that's a WordPress native function, so you don't need this plugin for that. This just works like that, but it's an alternative then because the post-its don't work in the block editor. Another thing is you can also mention users. So as you can see here, you can then whatever user you want to mention. It also adds a settings menu under settings. And by the way, I really like that when a plugin puts their menu item or their setting pages where it actually makes sense. It doesn't need to be a whole new menu entry in the top level. It can be under settings. That's really great. So you can restrict the access to certain users or user roles, define who should be able to delete, edit, and relocate the notes. So that's also quite handy. It's usually on author only, so only you can move them around and delete them. So, and if you don't like these floating buttons on the bottom right, you can also just change the setting here, and then it adds it to the top part. That's that's really handy. You can change the color intensity. I think it's a little bit too much, so I think it looks way better if it's less strong. And also under data management, you can delete all the data on uninstall. Very nice. The plugin is available in English and Hebrew, and what I like about it, it has a fun presentation. It's really satisfying somehow to move these posts around, and it has different styles for the notes, so you can make them more or less important. User can be mentioned, and it has a clean uninstall option. The support is really good and very responsive. What I didn't like about the plugin is basically nothing. Maybe because it doesn't work in Gutenberg editor, but other than that, it has plenty of options. It has a lot of accessibility options as well, like with moving these floating buttons to the top and stuff. So it's really good. I would give it a rating of 5.0. Demi is next. That's a plugin that allows you to make one-click demo imports, backups, and site migration. After installing the plugin, it adds a new menu item under Appearance, and here you can apply available demos, you can back up your site, or you can import backups. So as you can see, I made here 2 backups already, a full one and only one for the content. We can then download, restore, or delete them, and here you can make the backups. There are currently no demos available here. The way it works is you need to define a demo in your theme or your plugin via filter, and then it will show up here. So there are always 0 demos available unless your theme is like supporting it. So it's basically only useful if you bundle that in a theme, if you're a theme designer and you bundle that with your theme and you want to give some demos that user can then import. So for the general user, this is not really useful. It does its job as a backup tool, but there are way better backup solutions than that. The plugin is free and is available in English only. It has somewhat developer supports with a few actions and hooks. And what I like about the plugin is it allows you to make one-click backups, and also it is great for developer, but otherwise not very useful for most of the people. And it's very confusing at first why there are no demos available and that you have to basically create these demos yourself in order to use them. The backup is not really fast, especially on bigger sites. But yeah, so I will give this plugin a rating of 3.7. And welcome to Appointly. This is the welcome screen we get right after installation, and we can already see what we're missing out if we don't have the Pro version here. But we're not gonna have the Pro version now, we're just gonna go with the free one now, and we can add a service name here. Then we have some email settings. We can also change the SMTP configuration here, which is skip that for now, and a shortcode to integrate the plugin. We can also use a block in the Gutenberg editor. The plugin adds a new menu item, booking, and here we can see all the pending requests, the offered ones, the confirmed ones. We have a little calendar and some Appointly Pro upselling down here. Furthermore, there is a bookings tab where we can see a list of all the bookings we have offered or confirmed. We have a services tab where we can see all our active services, and a settings tab where we can define currency and default admin email, and also we can change the theme mode from light to dark or auto. There are German and English options for the email language. And we have some booking defaults, so we can say if a booking should like block all the other services once a day basically, or a time slot is booked. And some SMTP options. Under privacy, we can define the link to the data privacy. So we can overwrite the front end text here. You kind of need to know what kind of string you have here. So you can basically translate or like change the text in the front end. And also we have a clean uninstall option. Very nice. Here in the block editor, we can add the booking calendar with booking calendar, and we can choose if we want to have only one service or if the user can select whichever service he wants. We don't get a preview of the calendar itself, so let's save this and check it out. And here we have now the dark theme that looks like that. We can select a service, then we select a date. And as you can see, you can only select like full dates. You cannot select the time slot here. So we send an inquiry, and back in the backend, we can see we have now a request that is pending for us to check out. So the idea is then that you make an offer. By adding an offer, then you can say, okay, this will cost that much. You can add an admin note also. What's missing here is you cannot really define a time slot. I think that's quite crucial. And then you can, for example, accept it. We inform the customer. Let's go. Mark as accepted. And now the user should get an email. I couldn't really get the emails to work. Maybe you have to set up the SMTP. Without that, it seems not to work with sending the emails. Appointly is available in English, and there is a free and a pro version. What I like about the plugin is it has a quite simple setup. It has a nice design, and it is quite developer friendly with a lot of action and filter hooks that you can use. Also, the clean uninstall option is always appreciated. And also the Pro is relatively cheap, but you kind of need the Pro because, for example, a very basic thing like block certain dates when you have like weekend or holidays or whatever, you cannot do that with the free version, so you need to have the Pro version. Also, for me, it's a little bit weird that you select the whole date instead of like maybe also a time frame you would be available. So yeah, another thing I really didn't like is it really tries to sell you that Pro hard. So therefore, I think there are a little bit too few features in the free version to make it really useful. But the Pro version, on the other hand, is only like $3 or €3 a month, so yeah. But all in all, I would give it a rating of 3.3. Next on our list is a Bolt CTA Button. And when I saw this plugin first, I thought, oh, it's something with WhatsApp or with like Bolt, the Uber competitor. But both were not true. It's a call to action button. After plugin activation, we have a new option here under settings, and there we get a little preview of how our call to action buttons will look like. We can just enable or disable them with one click. We can define if we want to show it on mobile or on desktop or on both. And we can also change the scroll behavior. I think it's really nice if you hide it when you scroll down, but you can also have it always visible, whatever you like. You can define the buttons here, like we have a WhatsApp button here. It already pre-fills here, so you know what kind of format you need to enter here. Then the icon you can choose and pick another icon. Telegram, for example, let's keep it WhatsApp. You can change the background and text color, and you can change the behavior if it should open in a new tab or in the same tab. There is a maximum of 5 buttons, which kind of makes sense. Also, if we have a button here that has a very long text, you can see it already overflows here on the mobile. But under template and design, you can change that to a floating action button. So instead of having the bar, you have the button, and then it takes less space. That's really neat. And also, I think it's really nice that you can change it for mobile and desktop individually. You can say, okay, on the desktop I would like to have the bar instead of the floating action button. You can change the design of the button itself, where it should actually land. You can activate the tooltips, animations, and also the main icon. Under display rules, we can say where we want to have this button appearing. So currently we have it on 2 sides, but we can also say on all the pages. There is a delay and a scroll percentage setting, so we can only display it, for example, after the user scrolled 50% down the page. Last but not least, we have an analytics tab, and that's pretty cool because you can then see how many clicks a certain button got. And you have some statistics here. On the top right, we have plenty of languages to choose from. That's really nice. So let's see it in action. So you can see we have this bar, and if I reload the page again, you see it comes up and then it comes up again. If you have a delay, for some reason there is a little bug that shows the bar and then it hides it again and then it shows it again. But then you have the buttons here, you can just click and this works quite well. On mobile then we have the button that opens like that, and that's pretty much it. The plugin is free, there is no pro version, and it is available in quite a few languages, as you could see. But this is only for the backend. The front end is basically language neutral. What I like about the plugin is it has many settings and customization options. You have these two template options of a bar or a floating button. That's really cool. You have the statistics and yeah, 11 languages in total. What I didn't like about was the bug I just showed you, that it shows and then it hides again if you have this delay, and also the hover colors of the buttons itself cannot be defined. And if you have the button and the bar, then it loads two scripts instead of only one. That's really nitpicking then, but otherwise I would give this plugin a 4.6 rating. Last but not least, we have PixelCraft with WebP. This is a plugin that allows you to convert your images to WebP and downsize them. Let's have a look. Once installed, it adds a new menu under settings, and here we can see if everything is installed that we need for that, because the pictures will be encoded on the web server itself, so it doesn't send them via API to some other services. It does everything on your own web server. Here you have a few settings. You can enable the automatic conversion, so as soon as new image is uploaded, it will automatically convert it to a WebP, and it is only for JPEG and PNGs. You have a toggle if you want to keep the original files or not. You can set the WebP quality and also the maximum height and width. This option here with keep original files is super confusing, and it took me a while to figure it out. I first thought the plugin is just not working, but it kind of does. So if this is on, then it will make a WebP version, but it will deliver a scaled JPEG version that somehow is then bigger than the settings you set it here. So it is like 2500 pixel or so, like the default setting that is usually set here. So it does something, but it's really confusing. If this is off here, then it will deliver the WebP files, but it also doesn't delete the original files. So the naming here is really confusing. I will show you that later. Also this button here, I could not really tell what it does. For me, it was kind of the same. Then we have some diagnostic options. You can write the errors into the log or not, and you can start a bulk conversion of all the pictures you already have. If we go to the media library, then in the list view we can see if the picture is optimized or not. We can see like here, okay, we saved almost 40%. So this picture here I uploaded with the keep original off, and if we open that, we still have the original file here laying around and it's still accessible. So it doesn't delete the original file, which I would kind of expect, but it sizes it down to the correct size. So if you really want to use the plugin, you just deactivate this keep original option, and then it kind of works quite well. And that's basically everything this plugin does already. In terms of code quality, it's quite okay. It's not very developer friendly. There are not really any hooks you can use to modify the behavior of the plugin itself. What I like about the plugin is it doesn't have any bloat or any ads for a pro version. Well, there is no pro version, so. And also everything happens on your server. There is no files getting sent to an API, so that's really nice. What I didn't like is that this is really confusing with this keep original setting, and also the resize does not work when this setting is off, and there need to be some redesigning here. But otherwise, technically it works, but also it doesn't. So I give this plugin a rating of 3.3. And that's it. That's the first 8 plugins of May 2026. Which ones did you like? Which ones you may have installed and tried already? Let me know in the comments below, and I see you in 2 weeks.